The Billionaire's Housekeeper by Shadonna Richards. Narrated by L.W. Salinas. Chapter 1. "There's trouble at the Belmont Ranch Resort," Chase Belmont told his brother Cole. The two brothers stood at the side in one of the massive gardens at Belmont Palace. "I've got to be there." "Now?" Cole clarified, over the sound of music from the live band. Couldn't someone else go? The combination of chatter, laughter, and music almost drowned them out. Chase watched his old man, Jonah Belmont III, sitting on a garden chair surrounded by his friends, as if he didn't have a care in the world. Jonah had a lovely young nurse by his side. Chase felt ill thinking how this news would affect his father's fragile health if he ever found out. Jonah Belmont took great pride in each of his hotels, even when he went worldwide. Every facility received the same star treatment. Currently, a rival over the land of their newest locations wanted to see them eat dirt. "No," Chase said sternly. "No one else can go. I need to take care of business out there or we'll be in trouble. Something's up. I can feel it." "But what about Dad, Chase? Don't tell me you're trying to dodge the bullet. You know what Dad said about his bucket list challenge and how serious this is for him. It's his dying wish to see us spend his last days with him, and for him to see each of us in a stable relationship with the love of our life." I know, Chase said, clenching his jaw absent-mindedly. He was more annoyed than anything, and not with his dying father. Talk about bad timing. Chase knew this day was coming. His father didn't have much time to live, and wanted the boys to at least settle down with nice ladies to avoid the Belmont family curse. The garden at the Belmont Palace was filled with hundreds of guests. It was the Belmont family's weekly appreciation barbecue. As long as the weather was good in the scenic waterfront community owned by the Belmont family, they would honor their father, Jonah, who'd been given 6 months to a year to live after his pancreatic cancer resurfaced. The live band played various 50s ballads, some of his dad's favorite tunes that transported him back to happier times. It wasn't easy on any of them. Just then, his half-brother Brandon and his new bride Faith approached. Faith used to be a part-time waitress and the Belmont's professional clutter control organizer, who owned her own small business she ran out of her tiny apartment before they met. Chase thought of how cool it was that they finally got together, despite Brandon's reservation about getting tied down. Brandon was a security specialist and private detective, and much like his other half-brother Dane, he'd only just come to know Jonah as their biological father. "Everything okay?" Brandon asked in his deep voice. He was well over 6'5", the tallest of the brothers. "You look worried there," Brandon added. Brandon was ever the cautious eye, surreptitiously watching everyone from across the lawn, as was his force of habit. "Not really," Chase said. "Faith, nice to see you as always." "Likewise. Hi, Cole," Faith said, a drink in her hand, swaying to the sound of music. Her long hair was braided into long micro-braids. Her beautiful tanned complexion complemented her husband's. Chase wondered how long she sat for her hair to be done. He admired his new sister-in-law. "Listen, I think Olivia could use a hand," Faith said, handing her drink to her husband. She then pecked him on the cheek. Olivia was helping Aunt Maya in getting the cake table set up. They had plenty of staff to do work, but Aunt Maya had specially baked a cake for her brother's special day and wanted to handle it herself. After Faith scurried off, Brandon returned his attention to Chase. "So, what's going on?" he asked. "We're in trouble at the ranch out in BC, Chase reiterated to Brandon. Brandon's face went stony and hard. "What do you mean, trouble?" he asked cautiously. "Well, you know the Jacksons have been trying to get a hold of that land out in West Valley. The plot they always said was theirs, right?" "Yeah, I've heard about that," Brandon said, combing his hand through his hair. The Jacksons and the Belmonts have had a long-running family feud dating back to the early 1900s. mostly over land disputes and other politics, sometime after the railroad gold rush era. Of course, Jonah Belmont I, his great-grandfather, back in the early 1900s, settled things out and had opened up his first hotel. But it wasn't easy. He'd moved from BC back to Ontario during that time. The land was eventually sold to another company, but then taken over by the Belmonts again. Another company decided to build a resort there but failed, so the Belmonts reclaimed the facility and revamped it into one of their latest franchises in the hotel chain. Because of the breathtaking mountain view and ranches, they'd converted the place into some sort of retreat for guests. Much different from their luxury 5-star high-rise hotels in the various major cities. "Here, read this." Chase handed Brandon his cell phone. The screen showed a page from a gossip website. Legal dispute over Belmont Ranch Resort. According to sources in the area, the Belmont Ranch Resort is in deep financial trouble after claims of a dispute over the hotel's land. Half of the ranch land apparently belongs to Jackson's Travelodge heirs. An additional claim that the newly renovated resort, which was acquired by the Belmonts in a hostile takeover from another hotel company, is sitting on unstable land. The source, who did not want to be identified for fear of reprisal from the company's executives, also stated that engineers who came to survey the facility were paid a fee to grade the real estate as safe. "What the hell?" Brandon muttered. "My words exactly. Those sons of bitches are trying to shut us down out there, saying that the facility is not safe at the location where it is. Saying we bribed engineers to give us the green light so the project renovation could go ahead. And we won the land dispute fair and clear in court years ago. Why are they drumming up that old news now?" "Those low down," Brandon hissed. "It's crazy," Cole added. "They can't get away with this. They could be liable with defamation. I'd kill them if Dad ever found out about this. It'll send him over the edge. He can't deal with this type of crap right now. The man is dying, for Christ's sake. What are they trying to do to him?" "Well, now you see why I have to go out there," Chase said. "I've already contracted our lawyers to deal with the libel. I'll get my men on it and see who's behind this smear campaign," Brandon added, fury in his controlled voice. "Hey, what are you young men doing huddled in the corner like that? Go out and mingle with the guests," Aunt Maya said as she approached her nephews. "Oh, and you'll never guess who's here." "Who?" "The Santiago family. They've been placed on the list of who's who for the new billionaires after their tech business took off. Their sons have been deemed eligible bachelors." She sighed. "But they've got nothing on you guys. You've been blessed with the Belmont good looks genes. And then the Lee family is here from Lee Pencils Manufacturing," she said, scanning the massive gardens. "They're trying to marry off their daughter, but everyone knows she's not really into men, if you know what I mean. Everyone except them, of course. Everyone who's got a name is here. Bradley from the Belmont Cab Company is here with his family, too. They've purchased the town cab company and are merging. Talk about—" Aunt Maya paused from her friendly rambling of news on everyone's business there, and then she frowned. "You guys look like you've been in serious discussion, and I know it's not about my homemade lasagna. I know I overdid it with the spices and the oregano was a bit much, but it still came out all right." Chase grinned. "Aunt Maya, there's nothing wrong with your lasagna." "Well, you know your father wants nothing more than for you boys to mingle with the guests. You know, ever since you all started these appreciation dinners to let him know how much you care and give everyone a chance to tell him how wonderful he is, it's got into his head." She placed her hands on her hips. "Can't say I blame him. I think it's sweet what you boys did, saying that we can't just save nice words till after folks pass on. Who knows if they can hear wherever they're going? Got to do it here and now. Good idea, boys. It's really catching on in the Belmont community. I hear Travis, the pharmacist, is throwing appreciation parties for no reason for his grandmother. And, well, it's the talk of the town. Hey, you know Dad means the world to us. And besides, he's given so much to this community. The whole Belmont line has, Chase said. Well, they didn't name the town after our dear old great-grandfather for no reason. He was a pioneer in the economic development of this place back in the day. I know, Chase said, anger seething through him over the Jackson family scheme to try and mess up that legacy with their nonsense. Yet again. Listen, Aunt Maya, I know I promised to stay here with Dad like the rest of my brothers until, well, I'll have to head out west for a while, probably a month or so to take care of some business. What? Why? Aunt Maya seemed genuinely disappointed. What could be so important that you have to go out there now, Chase? You know your dad doesn't have much time left. The doctor said he has only 6 months to a year left. His health condition could change very suddenly. Oh, Chase, she continued, putting her hand over her heart. Can't this wait until next year? Chase sighed heavily, feeling the pressure on his own heart. I wish I could, Auntie. Trust me, I wish I could. Chase really didn't want to go into the real reason why he had to go out there. Everybody loved Aunt Maya, but the lovely woman couldn't keep a secret to save her life. He grinned to himself at the thought. They didn't call Aunt Maya the Belmont newswoman for nothing. She never meant any harm, mind you, but she'd been known to breach the family trust wall a few times by accident. Her memory came and went at times, and she'd forgotten the don't say anything to anyone part of conversations before. The last thing Chase wanted was for his father to know that at this stage in his life, the long-running feud between the Jacksons and the Belmont families was still as fierce as ever. And now, the Jacksons had their people trying to dig up dirt and stir up trouble over a piece of prime real estate out west. Up to their old tricks again. Their great-great-grandfather, Ernest Jackson I, was a real estate tycoon back in the day. Ernest Jackson I, who founded the Jackson Inn bed and breakfast chain, and Jonah Belmont I, who founded the first Belmont Hotel, which later became the Belmont Hotel and Resort, were best friends and business partners. But something went horribly wrong between them. To this day, the Belmont brothers didn't know all the details, and Jonah III decided not to tell everything to his sister Maya, though Maya did know some details of what went down and how it related to a curse and a dark family secret. Every time she tried to talk about it, the little she knew, Jonah would hush her up. Based on the tidbits Aunt Maya let slip, Chase was willing to bet it might also somehow have something to do with a deadly love triangle between Ernest, Jonah, and a lovely woman who had apparently bewitched both men. They'd gone from friends to enemies quickly and become rivals. Then came the disputes over land from Ontario to British Columbia. No, it can't wait until next year, Aunt Maya, Chase said, checking his watch. I'm sorry, but I don't want you to say anything to Dad about it, okay? Don't say anything to your father? Aunt Maya echoed, disappointed. Well, what am I supposed to say when you're not at family dinners and during weekly appreciation events? That you're wearing your invisibility cloak? Very funny, Auntie. Just say I had urgent matters to attend to. He'll never know if I come home at nights or not. Which was the truth. The Belmont mansion wasn't referred to as the Belmont Palace for nothing. The massive structure of the estate, built over the last couple centuries, was befitting of a royal family with its 75 rooms, 4 separate quarters, and thousands of acres of land. Not to mention several servants' quarters, cottages on the estate, a grand pool, golf course, and manicured gardens. I suppose you have a point, but you know he likes when you boys check in on him once in a while. I will. I'll fly out here when I can. On weekends. Just let me get the business wrapped up while I can. Where are you going exactly? Chase exchanged looks with Brandon before answering. Well, I'm going to the resort ranch. Oh, no. Are we having trouble with those Jacksons again? Oh, boy. That's exactly what Chase was trying to avoid. His dear old auntie was a bit too smart for him. Yes, auntie, but everything's okay. Please don't tell Dad. What are those no-good people up to this time? It's not over that dispute over horseland again, is it? Aunt Maya, please let me deal with this. And it's called a ranch, not horseland. The situation's not as bad as you make it out to be. Actually, it's much worse. But Chase wasn't going to get his auntie all worked up about it. As if an idea breezed into her mind, Maya paused thoughtfully for a moment. Well, since you're out there at the ranch resort, why don't you see if you meet up with a nice country girl? I heard the small town is really... Aunt Maya, Chase said, narrowing his eyes. Don't even go there. Go where? I'm not going anywhere. Aunt Maya tried to feign innocent. But Chase knew his auntie all too well. If he and his brothers didn't know any better, they'd swear that their father and auntie were both trying to get them hitched within a year. You know your father was serious about wanting to see you all settled down before he goes to be with the Lord, right? Aunt Maya said. And look at your brothers, Dane and Brandon. They're so happy with their new wives. And who would have thought they'd have gotten married so quickly after meeting that special someone? Especially Brandon. I'm still here, Aunt Maya, Brandon interjected with a charming grin. Yes, of course, she said dismissively. Her cheeks reddened. Well, you know what I mean. I know, Chase said quietly, bringing his drink to his lips. A part of his heart tugged with emotion. She was right. Who'd ever thought that Dane and Brandon would have gotten hitched so soon? And they're as happy as heaven. Laughing all the time, having fun all the time, going to bed and waking up each morning with the loves of their lives. What more could a man ask for? Then his mouth became dry all of a sudden. Was it the bitter taste of betrayal surfacing again after all these months, dealing with his ex-girlfriend Jeline? Don't tell me. Jeline still got you riled up, right? Brandon chimed in. Oh, darling, I'm so sorry about what that girl did to you. That human toothpick, Maya said, followed by a... Chase appreciated how protective his aunt was over the boys. She didn't take it too well after what his former supermodel ex-girlfriend did to him. Yeah, well, you'll forgive me if I never trust another woman. I'm still paying the price for Jeline. That horrible movie she did, Maya continued. Chase felt quite uncomfortable discussing the movie with his aunt. I'm just going to drop it, learn from it, and move on. And it wasn't a movie, it was a serious violation of privacy. And that was the truth. Bitterness spilled over in Chase's voice talking about it. Well, good thing you got good ratings on the flick, Cole teased him. Come on, bro. It's not as bad as you think. You should have seen all those comments the girls wrote about you. Pretty hot. Not as bad? Chase frowned. Listen, boys, Aunt Maya excused herself. I'm going to go and check in on your father. We'll be cutting the cake soon. I hope you guys join us soon. The people from the bank are coming soon to offer their kind words to your father. The Belmont boys were happy to throw fun bashes for their old man at the estate garden with everyone he'd done business with and had acquaintance with over the years. It was also their father's way of saying his goodbyes on his own term. At 75, with a life full of wealth, privilege, and dreams that came true, Jonah felt it was a good way for him to look at life. Like the mighty tycoon and ruthless businessman he'd always been, he stepped up to the plate, no matter how challenging, and took that bull by the horns, never running away from it. Life's tough, but I'm tougher, was Jonah's mantra, quoting that famous declaration. "Not even death scares me," Jonah also declared. But he also said, "The only thing that terrifies me is leaving you boys and feeling that you'll be alone and never find and have true love. Because that is what life is about. To share with someone who loves you and cares about you, and vice versa." The words settled into Chase's mind at that moment. But after what Jolene did to him, how could his father ever expect him to be close to any woman again? Jolene was a former supermodel. She'd set up Chase during one of their visits to the Vegas Strip. They'd done all sorts of wild and crazy stuff on that excursion. And what did she do? Had them secretly filmed. She'd brought up the idea to Chase before, but he'd said no. He just wasn't into filming his business like that. As kinky as he could get, that wasn't something that appealed to him. And if he was into it, he would have liked to have known the motive behind the scheme first. Chase had a serious business reputation to protect, not to mention the family's respectful name to uphold. His father didn't take it too kindly at the time. Of course, that was behind closed doors. In public, Jonah shrugged it off as just another attempt at the media wanting more of the Belmonts, and there was nothing to it. Of course, when it accidentally got leaked on the internet, all hell broke loose. They had to go for major damage control to salvage the respectable name of the Belmont family line. As one may have expected, Jolene got back into the limelight and penned a 7-figure book deal after that, along with her own reality show. The angle of it was what it was like to be with a Belmont heir from the long family line of honorable figures in the country's history, and one of the major contributors to the economic development of the area. Now sex tape co-star. Needless to say, Jolene's once-failing career in the entertainment biz took off again. "Well, Aunt Maya does have a point, Chase," Brandon added. "She does? Of course. You can always go out to the ranch resort as a worker from the family. No one knows or sees us out there. Just grow your shadow. Once you're sporting a little beard and maybe dye your hair, you're good to go. No one would even suspect you're a Belmont going to work as a maintenance worker. You know your way around fixin' stuff, right? Yeah, I guess you do have a point. But I'm just not feeling the vibe. The last thing I want to do is hook up with some girl out in the valley. But there you go. You can see if she likes you for you, not what you have or what family dynasty you're from." "Sounds like a plan," Cole agreed. "You should go for it, Chase. What have you got to lose? That way you can probably make Dad happy in his last days. He said you should at least be in a loving and stable relationship, right?" "True," Chase agreed half-heartedly. He still had an uneasy feeling about the whole darn situation. He loved his father very much, but this overhype about being in a relationship and married was a bit much, and unnecessary if you asked him. After all, wasn't his father married 4 times? Okay, his father admitted to being caught by the family curse because he refused to follow the tradition of putting the boutonniere in the family's good luck brass bucket handed down from his great-grandfather Jonah Belmont I, but there must be more to it than that. Still, looking at how truly on top of the world Brandon and Dane were in their marriages, he could not deny how powerful and magical it had transformed his brothers and turned out so well for them. They'd be talking about babies soon. Where did that leave Chase? Would he be destined for a life of loneliness because he completely distrusted women, at least where long-term relationships were concerned? Sure, he'd be up for a physical relationship with them, but his plan was never get involved for the long haul, after what Jolene did to him. Safe sex, not love, had been his motto since then. But could this really work? Did such a dainty woman with no desire to lust over material wealth such as his truly exist? Besides, you need to know who's spreading these rumors about the Belmont land out there, Brandon added, coolness in his tone. Better to let people think you're just a worker going out there and not management. That way you can see who's hanging out at the facility and what they're up to. Sure thing. That sounds like a good way to get down to the bottom of this, Chase agreed. Fine. My name from now on, or my code name, will be Chuck. Cole burst out laughing, almost choking on his drink. You're not serious. Well, of course I'm serious. You don't really think I'm going to go as Chase Belmont now, do you? But come on, Chuck. You can do better than that. Right. Well, I'll be Chad then. Chad's closer to Chase than Chuck. Right, Chad. Whatever you say. Cole teased him. His younger brother seemed to be having fun with this new idea of identity change. Oh, don't worry, little bro, Chase added. Your time is next. Me? Cole said. Yes, you. If I meet a girl to settle down with and that's a big if, he added, then you're going to be next. Oh, no. Oh, yes. Right, Chase. We've got to get this thing set up then, Brandon said. I'll get the uniform with your new identity and name tags set up so you can go out there undercover. And in the meanwhile, I'll look into what's really going on down there. There were clearly advantages to having a big brother who was a security, investigative, and espionage specialist. It was a good thing Brandon had the connections to get this gig going. Chase just hoped it wouldn't backfire on the family or the business. He still had an uneasy feeling about the whole undertaking. But anything for his father. Chase's specialty was getting things organized and in shape, while Brandon's was security and high-tech investigation. Chase drew in a deep breath. Why did he feel as if he'd live to regret this? The music stopped playing and Aunt Maya went up to the podium to speak. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, she said. As you know, we appreciate you being here to show your wonderful support for my dear brother Jonah. Everyone was silent for a moment. Well, I'm not really much for words, but I'm going to let Jonah speak. He's much better at it than I am. Jonah, she called, before handing the microphone to Jonah Belmont as he walked onto the stage with his walking stick. Since Physio had been seeing him 3 times a week, he'd gotten much smoother with his gait. For a while he'd regressed, but Chase was happy to see days when his father's health got stronger. Thank you, Maya. Everyone, thank you so much for being here to, well, he chuckled. To see me off, I guess. Jonah, Maya said, blushing. You're making everyone feel uncomfortable. She tittered with obvious admiration. Oh, nonsense, Maya. I'm an old man. What do you think? I've lived a full life and done millions of great activities. Which brings me to why I want to speak right now. I've learned a lot during my time. 75 is still young, but it's still a good age. Doc has given me 6 months to a year. I give him 6 months to see me turn around and beat this thing. Gales of laughter erupted from the guests. Jonah wasn't one to shy away from his sense of humor at any time, even at the worst of times. Chase always admired his father's bravery and honesty. He was a good man. Even the fact that he'd had affairs between his 4 marriages, he'd sought to find his former mistresses to make sure they were taken care of, and if they'd given him any heirs he didn't know about, like Dane and Brandon, he wanted to make sure he did the right thing by providing for them in his revised will. Talk about honor. The man always thought of others, even now. That was why Chase wanted more than anything to clear up this crazy disaster waiting to happen out at the Belmont Ranch Resort before the media got wind of it. You know, a lot of people look at what the family has. You all know our family history and the township. And many of you have probably read in the media about us living lives of luxury. Well, truth be told, guys, luxury, true luxury, I mean, is having good health, because not everyone has that luxury. So we must take care of it and take nothing for granted. It's not the wealth, but my health during these years that have made me happy, because I was able to do everything I wanted to do. So don't take the little things for granted, like being able to see, hear, get up in the morning without physio helping you up. Though I feel blessed to have these incredible people by my side, and being able to smell the aroma of my sister's god-awful coffee in the morning. Laughter erupted from the guests, while Aunt Maya grinned and rolled her eyes, her arms folded across her chest as she listened to her brother close by on the stage. I see a lot of young people here today, Jonah continued. The Santiago family, the Bradleys, the Lee family. Oh my God, so many of you have turned up with your growing brood. I remember going to all of your christenings. It's uplifting to see it. As many of you are aware, I've given my sons a bucket list challenge. Yes, a bucket list challenge. And for my boys, they know the story behind the Belmont family's heirloom brass bucket that was handed down from previous generations. It's vital they place their boutonnieres inside for the family blessing on their lives. So far, I've got 2, and I need 5 from all my boys. Anyway, we all want to do things before we... He continued, well, let's just say transition to another life. He coughed. So my challenge is not only that my sons do the right thing and settle down to a good life with someone they love and respect, but I see so many workaholics and young and upcoming entrepreneurs here, making their way in life to give back to society. But I don't want to see any of you end up alone, because it's not really money that makes the world go round, and this is coming from someone who's got a lot. It's love that makes the world go round, or at least makes the ride worth it. I'm so very proud of my son Dane and my son Brandon for taking that challenge and not leaving love off the table. Though they were dubious, they found wonderful wives and soulmates. Success is nothing without someone you care about to share it with. I'm very proud of Cole, Leo, and Chase too, but I hope they find someone nice to settle down with soon. Dad? Cole blurted out. Sorry to embarrass you guys, but I'm very serious about my challenge. I would like to not see you working 24 hours around the clock so you can find time to spend with that significant other. I'd like to see it while I'm around, and if it means I have to mention it in front of our friends and family... He shrugged, an innocent expression on his face. So be it. Many of the guests laughed, and Cole, Leo, and Chase had sheepish grins on their faces. Fine, Dad. We'll try. But it's not easy. You need to take care of yourself, Leo added. I'm fine. Folks, that's why I'm so happy today, even though I've been given limited time. He drew in a deep breath. I've seen the most beautiful sunsets in the world, lived in palaces, made a lot of money, given away a lot of money, did what I enjoyed doing in life, carrying on the family business in a respectable industry, hospitality, and I've enjoyed love in my life. I wish I still had my wives around. One at a time, of course. He chuckled. But I'm very happy. Could you imagine doing all of the above without love? That's true, Brandon agreed. Well, this party is about appreciation of those you love, and thank you, sons. But it's also about my appreciation of all of you being here, and I want you to appreciate each other as you've been doing. You only live once. Live it well, very well, the first time. A round of applause erupted from the guests. Chase had to hand it to his old man. He was a man of many words. Now that it's all out in the open, everyone was looking at Chase to fill his old man's heirloom bucket with a boutonniere. Great! Obviously, this only added more pressure. Are you ready for your mission, Chase? Or should I say, Chad? Brandon grinned at Chase. You better believe it. Chapter 2. 1 week later. Abbi Lopez scanned the ad in front of her as she sat in her car. Wanted, assistant housekeeper, part-time and full-time. Report to executive housekeeper. To contribute to guest comfort and ensure the daily cleaning and tidying of all the lodge bedrooms and guest cabins. To also monitor the operation efficiency of the linen service. She was there from the agency for a trial period, but she really hoped and prayed she could actually apply for the job permanently in a full-time capacity. Did she have all the qualifications? God knew she really needed a change of pace in her life. She'd been through a lot as it stood. The Belmont Valley Ranch and Spa was one of the finest in the country. It was fairly new. They'd taken over another facility and converted it recently. Abbi went over the list of responsibilities. To ensure that all guests' laundry and dry cleaning is processed in accordance with hotel procedures, and documentation completed for hotel audit procedures. To record and report all faults and damage arising to the maintenance department, and to record, report, and process lost property according to hotel procedures. Sure, that would be no trouble at all. Abbi always kept her journal with her and wrote down everything, long before she got into the business of housekeeping. She was the ultimate diarist. This seemed like the perfect change for her. Some physical work where she could also plan her next strategy and really shake her ex off her tail. Her ex-fiancé, Eduardo, was nothing more than a creep with a capital C. He'd been stringing Abbi along this whole time. She'd moved back to Canada from the States and decided to make a new life for herself, especially after what he'd done to her. She ran her fingers down the ad again. Attention to detail. Working carefully within the minimum time. Boy, did she ever wish she'd paid attention to detail when she'd met Eduardo. How could she not have seen the signs? Love was blind, wasn't it? Or at least she thought she was in love with him. That timing. Eduardo was a rich dude Abbi met while working at a hotel in housekeeping. The man promised her the world and tried to sweep her off her tired, aching feet. Then she'd found out the guy was a slime ball. As slimy as they came. He tried to practically buy her out. And he'd been living with someone else too. Eduardo had lived a double life and lied to Abbi about everything. I will not think about that now. The past is the past. It's dead and gone. She perused the rest of the ad. Teamworking. The ability to take the initiative. Fluency in a second language would be an advantage. She was fluent in Spanish and French, so she'd put that in on the application when the time came for a full-time position. God, please let me get this full-time position after this 2-month temporary contract. Abbi got out of the car and closed the door, taking in the clean mountain air. This would be the perfect place to work and retire. The scenic surroundings were breathtaking alone. Later, down the road, she could go back to school and do a master's degree in business. She'd always dreamed of owning her own bed and breakfast, or maybe a spa for working moms and dads, but the funds weren't there. She also had to take care of her younger sister Luisa and make sure she finished college too. Speaking of which, her cell phone buzzed. It was her sister. Yes, Luisa? Abbi said, as she hurried up on the hill towards the main guest house. Just called to wish you good luck. Aw, thank you, sis. And how much do you need? She asked, lovingly yet with a matter-of-fact tone. She grinned and rolled her eyes. Abbi knew her sister very well. What? Luisa said playfully, feigning surprise. I'm insulted. Can't your little sister call you to wish you good luck on your first long assignment in a while, without you thinking I always need money? Eres una mentirosa. I know you too well, my darling sis, Abbi teased Luisa. Your calls always seem to come with a price tag these days. What? Not fair. Luisa playfully scowled. Okay, sorry, sis. Abbi sighed. You're right. Thank you for calling me to simply wish me luck on my first day. It's been a while and this place is super nice. I like it already, Abbi continued, walking towards the cottage main area. I love being close to nature. I think it's the perfect job for what I need. Good. So glad. Hope you get a permanent job out of that temp one. You always said you wanted to be closer to nature. Thanks, Luisa, she said, sounding slightly breathless as she hurried up the steep stone steps on the hill. The main guest house was situated on a hillside. Abbi caught the breathtaking scenery and took a whiff of the clean country air. How are your classes coming along? Cool, Louisa said. Hey, you sound like you're running a race or sprinting to the finish line. Why are you out of breath? The main guest house is sort of on a hill. I parked the rental at the bottom. Good exercise. Ah, right. Well, anyway, you know these pre-law classes are quite intriguing. Good to hear. Just study hard. There was a brief pause on the phone. It'll be a cinch to study hard, sis. Especially if I have the funds to... Dios mío, Louisa. Sorry, sis, but you know how it is. The girls all went to the mall to get the new DS. I don't want to be the only one who couldn't afford one. So, well, I ran out of money. Abbi animatedly shook her head. Fine, I'll wire you some more funds. But please be careful of the spending, Louisa. It's not what you have in life that matters, it's what you are inside. Just study well so you can have all the stuff you want one day. These friends of yours probably have big trust funds, which you don't. All right, sis. Have fun on the job. Abbi hung up the phone. She was so focused on the call that she didn't see the pail in her way as she reached the top. Nor did she see the sign that read caution. Abbi bumped into the pail, then stepped backwards, but didn't realize how close she was to the top of the steps. She stumbled and tried to prevent herself from falling. Oh no. Flailing her hands about, she was going to fall backwards and break some essential part of her body. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. She felt her heart pounding very hard and fierce in her chest. She felt as if her ribs were about to explode. Abbi saw her life flash before her. Terror gripped her like it had never done before. She was going to die. She just knew it. Just then, she felt strong arms grab hold of her and yank her back to the top of the step. You okay, miss? The deep, sexy voice penetrated her mind. The sweet scent of his cologne had a calming effect on her. Huh? She uttered, obviously dazed. Like an angel appearing out of a shining aura of light, he was at her side. This all seemed so surreal. She'd been this close to what could have been a fatal accident. The tall, dark, and handsome stranger caught her fall. Good Lord, he saved her life. Ay, Dios mío, she said, still out of breath. Mil gracias. Thank you. I don't know what happened. Abbi's heart was pounding hard. She felt her chest squeeze. It's okay, he said. His captivating blue eyes gazed into hers, and her heart turned over in her chest. Good Lord. The man was breathtaking. An appreciative grin curled her lips. Appreciation that he'd saved her life, and that he was truly easy on the eyes. Embarrassed at her own response, she couldn't help but ogle his tasty features. Abbi noticed his dark, sexy gaze, his high cheekbones, and beautiful but masculine face. He had dark hair and a lovely tan, and was wearing a professional-looking crisp navy blue uniform. And those strong biceps of his. His muscular arms were incredibly smooth and firm. There was nothing like a man with rolled-up shirt sleeves exhibiting his finest assets. Abbi loved a man with muscled arms and broad shoulders. But what girl wouldn't? There was just something about it that pleased Abbi. She read his name patch sewn into his shirt. It simply read, Chad, Maintenance Support Staff. There was something about Chad that really struck a chord inside her. A delightful note. Her belly tingled with electricity at his touch. She'd never, ever felt such instant chemistry with a man before. Not like this. It caught her off guard in more ways than one. She caught the irresistible scent of his aftershave. Abbi noted he had incredibly solid biceps. Those arms were strong and powerful. He had great height, too, she mused, having to look up to him, literally. The man was built well, with broad shoulders and a slim waistline. She noted a few ornate artsy tattoos down his right arm. Chad, Maintenance Support Staff. She read over his name tag again in her mind, as if savoring the scent of his name in her mind. Well, he was certainly supportive during her time of need. What a klutz she'd been, not focusing on where she was going. Another reason why cell phone use should be limited to non-multitasking. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked yet again in his deep, sexy voice. Abbi was almost speechless. "You could be in shock. I'll get help." "No," she blurted out. No, thank you. I'll be fine." Abbi shook her head to recapture her senses. Her heart still pounded hard and fast in her chest. She felt as if she'd explode from the heavy beats. Her belly was all knotted up in nerves. "Thank you, Chad," she said, breathing hard, addressing his name tag. Her leg ached, but it could have been much worse if it hadn't been for Chad. "Are you sure you don't need any help?" "No, I'm fine." She brushed off her orange top and her brown pencil skirt. Chad was fine-looking, handsome and strong. She again noted his muscular arms and his broad chest. Abbi was willing to bet he worked out. Just a nice, handsome, ordinary, hard-working guy. A super average Joe. Very polite, caring, and obviously diligent. She glanced at his ring finger. No ring. No ring indents. Wow. And he could very well be single. "Stop it, Abbi. He's a potential coworker. You're only here on a temp assignment. Get real." "I'm Abbi," she said. "We're going to be working together, I guess." "Working together?" "Yes. I'm from the agency. You guys needed a temp for a couple months while you go through restructuring." "We do?" He seemed clueless. She guessed maybe not all the staff were aware of management's plans. "Sorry, I guess I said too much." "Nah, it's okay. I heard we'll be going through some changes here." "Which department?" he asked, walking with her on the stone pathway toward the front of the main lodge. "I'm the new temp housekeeper," she said. She noticed Chad's body language stiffened. Chapter 3.